wanted to know if you knew that Mr. Priebus was accused of voter intimidation in his home state of Wisconsin. Did you know that? Well, why don't we read the allegation? This flyer says, "These great men died for fighting for our civil liberties." I think those spaces are pretty recognizable. And look what the inset says. It says, "This man," writes Priebus, "led a group that has been accused of intimidating minorities to prevent them from voting." This flyer was sent out by Mr. Priebus's rival in the election. His opponent was Bob Wersch. Those in Wisconsin and southeast Wisconsin especially know who Bob Wersch was or is. And it was sent out to alert voters about Reince Priebus. Let's look at another flyer. Reince Priebus has led a group that has been accused of intimidating minorities to prevent them from voting. Maybe Mr. Priebus thought it was a good political strategy to intimidate minorities and prevent them from voting, And it went on to allude to a lot of things. This flyer gave some serious allegations. If the head of the RNC, Mr. Priebus, has been accused of reprehensible action, isn't anybody out there ready to demand that he step down as chairman of the RNC? Anybody want to do that? Well, it's not going to be me. Here I am standing with Mr. Priebus when he came on a political campaign stop in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was running for U.S. Congress. And I proudly acknowledge that I know Reince Priebus, and I thought that was a very, very underhanded smear that Bob Wersch did with trying to undermine him with those lies in that flyer. So what's the point? What does this have to do with rigged elections and President Obama's statement? Well, it's because allegations, you don't have to have proof, you just have to allege, no matter how far-fetched it seems. Allegations of voter intimidation is a Democrat strategy of intimidation to limit the effectiveness of poll watchers. Poll watchers? Yes, those are volunteers from each party who are there at the voting stations to ensure that everything is on the up and up and watching what's going on to make sure that someone is not putting their finger or thumb on the scale to tilt it one way or the other. And without the poll watchers, the fox has potential reign over the henhouse. You still don't believe me? Well, here's an excerpt from an article that was written about me in 2010. I won the Republican nomination. I was going against a four-term incumbent in the 13th Congressional District of North Carolina. And the Raleigh News and Observer broke this story, supposed to be a story, and other rag outfits picked up on it. And it said the campaign of a candidate challenging a two-term congressman from North Carolina is raising eyebrows of of questionable and possible illegal tactics. And then it names me, and it says, "I appear to cross the line." And it went on to talk about voter intimidation, and it impugned our motives, even though we were there just doing our jobs. It didn't say once that it was proven that we did anything wrong. All it did was, you have these nefarious characters that allege that something was going on, and then the liberal newspaper picks up on it, and then they print and publish this for the purpose of influencing public opinion. Well, when I ran for Congress, I observed Democrat tactics that could be described as winning through intimidation. The Republicans gained control of the North Carolina General Assembly, the House and the Senate, and they passed sweeping legislation, and pretty much the public felt it was good what they were doing. After all, the public did put them in office as the majority in both houses. As a matter of fact, they had not held both chambers of the North Carolina legislature for over 100 years. There were times, I believe, where they got the Senate, but they had not held both for over 100 years. And so all those years passed when the Democrats were winning elections, winning majorities, rewriting voting districts, drawing the lines for the voting districts. The Republicans, all they could do was just, look at how the gerrymandering was going and not do anything about it. So then in 2010, the Republicans gained control of the House and Senate, and of course, they get to draw the lines of demarcation. Well, you think that it stops there? No, you didn't just have the Republicans draw the lines, they also had it go through court, and it was approved in the court system. So it was validated in the court system, it became law, the new congressional districts were drawn, and then you have recently, after President Obama's in office, and he has his Justice Department and others alleging that there's racism going on behind the motives for the North Carolina General Assembly. They cry foul, and then recently they had the lines for the districts had to be redrawn. Then you have the matter of voter ID. Of course, the new legislature had a very reasonable goal, and that is to make sure that there was not illegal things going on with people voting multiple times, getting on buses, going from voting area to voting area, and having them cast a lot of illegal votes. You have to have an ID card for pretty much anything you do of significance in society. What's wrong with having it for voting? So the voter ID was challenged also, and recently it was overturned. In my unsuccessful run for Congress, I got over 92,000 legitimate votes, and it is estimated by a few conservative organizations that my opponent got more fraudulent votes than the margin of victory. There was some serious voter fraud going on. This is just to call your attention to what had happened. I mean, the person we have in office now, George Holding, I think he's doing a great job. But that's not the point. The point is, elections are stolen when you have no voter ID and when you have no poll watchers there to make sure that everything is on the up and up. It is not ridiculous. It's part of the liberal, progressive playbook, and it is something that we need to take seriously. Thank you.